Migration. It's a word that dominates the headlines, a force that shapes our entire world. But what's its real connection to economic development? In this analysis, we're going to dive deep into that very question. We'll be drawing on the eye-opening work of Dr. Osgar Kanbİr to really get to the bottom of this complex issue, exploring the historical forces behind human movement and the challenges that lie ahead.
Dr. KANBİR kicks things off with a statement that really shakes up the modern debate. It can be said that civilization is the product of migration. Just think about that for a second. This single idea reframes migration, not as a crisis, but as the fundamental engine of human progress itself. It's the driving force behind the exchange of ideas, cultures, and technologies that literally built our world. But that big historical perspective, it stands in really sharp contrast to a painful modern reality. Right now, according to the UNHCR, a staggering 82.4 million people are forcibly displaced worldwide. This isn't some abstract historical trend we're talking about. It's an urgent global crisis happening right now. A crisis of refugees, asylum seekers, and people displaced within their own countries. And that number, that's the backdrop for everything we're about to discuss. To really grasp the scale of today's challenges, we've got to look back. I mean, how did we even get here? In this section, we're going to explore migration as the engine of history, the force that has constantly reshaped societies and economies. You know, our modern global economy didn't just appear out of nowhere. Its foundations were laid way back in the age of mercantilism. The relentless search for wealth during that era triggered massive movements of people, fueling colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade, and carving out the economic pathways that still connect our continents today. Dr. Kanbİr's work suggests that we can understand modern history through the lens of 5 distinct waves of migration. Each one was driven by different forces, and each one left an indelible mark on the world map. So let's break these waves down. The first was this massive European expansion where over 58 million people settled new lands. Then you have the second wave, which was all about escaping poverty in places like India and China. The third wave, that marked a big post-colonial shift, with people moving from former colonies, think Algeria to France, back to the old imperial centers. The fourth was shaped entirely by the political tensions of the Cold War. And the fifth wave, well, that's our reality right now, defined by conflicts in places like Syria and, of course, Ukraine. The impact of these waves was just monumental. Take the Americas, for example. After an initial population collapse from conquest and disease, migration fueled an unbelievable demographic explosion. In just one century, the 1800s, the population nearly quadrupled, driven by European settlement and the forced migration of enslaved people. This wasn't just population growth, it was the creation of entirely new societies. And all of this history brings us to the central debate today. The economic tug-of-war. Is migration a net benefit that drives development, or is it a drain on vital resources that creates dependency? The answer, as we're about to see, is anything but simple. At the heart of the economic argument, you've basically got 2 opposing camps. On one side, you have the optimists, often aligned with neoclassical economics. They talk about brain gain, arguing that migration boosts development and equality. On the other side, you have the pessimists, drawing from neo-Marxist ideas, who warn about brain drain, leading to greater inequality and dependency. Let's dig into both sides. This optimistic viewpoint is rooted in classic economic theories, like the Lewis model. So what's that? In its simplest terms, the model basically says that economies grow when there's a surplus of labor in rural agricultural areas that can then move to urban industrial centers. You know, that classic shift from the fields to the factories. This is seen as the absolute key to economic growth. It takes idle labor and turns it into a powerful engine for development. But those traditional economic models don't always fit today's crises. That's why Dr. KANBİR introduces the concept of the kach-kach model, which translates roughly to flee-flee or escape-escape. This describes a totally different kind of migration, not for opportunity, but for survival. It's the sudden, desperate flight from war or invasion, like what we've seen in Syria and, more recently, Ukraine. This is forced migration in its rawest form. So it's crucial that we look beyond these broad theories and analyze the concrete effects of migration, both on the source countries people leave behind and on the host countries where they arrive. For the countries people leave, there can be some real positives. When people emigrate, it can ease unemployment and potentially lead to higher wages for those who stay. Plus, the
The money that migrants send home, we call them remittances, can be a powerful economic lifeline, often exceeding foreign aid and stabilizing the national economy.
But the costs for the source country can be devastating. The most famous is brain drain, the loss of skilled professionals like doctors and engineers, and that's compounded by muscle drain, the loss of essential manual labor. Essentially, these countries invest in educating and raising their citizens only to see that human capital exported for free, which can seriously stunt their own development. Okay, so let's flip it around and look at the host country. The benefits are often clear and immediate. Immigrants fill critical labor shortages, they help keep production costs in check, and they allow the economy to operate at full capacity. It's the other side of the coin. For every brain drain, there's a brain gain. Host countries acquire valuable human capital without having to pay the upfront costs of education and training. But of course, it comes with challenges. An influx of people increases demand on public services like schools and healthcare. There can be concerns about future unemployment, and as we see all over the headlines, potential social friction related to demographic and cultural integration. So, we've looked at the past and the present, but what about the future? What is going to trigger the next great wave of human migration? Well, the answer might be something that transcends economics and borders entirely. Analysis increasingly points to the conclusion that the next great migration won't be driven by economics or conflict, but by a force that knows no borders, the climate crisis. Rising sea levels, expanding deserts, and catastrophic weather events are poised to displace millions, creating a whole new category of migrant, the climate refugee. It is hard to wrap your head around the potential scale of this. Projections suggest that in the coming decades, climate change could displace as many as 1.5 billion people. Just let that number sink in for a moment. That's nearly 20 times the number of people who are forcibly displaced today. It's a number that will redefine the 21st century. And this all brings us to one final, really profound question. Throughout all of history, migration has been the engine of human progress. We've seen that. But now, as we face down this unprecedented climate crisis, the question we have to ask ourselves is this: are we standing on the brink of the largest and maybe the most challenging wave of migration in the entire history of our species?